All right. What is up? Here we are live on this Tuesday. Hope everybody is doing well. A few things we need to jump in here before I got a lozenge going for the throat here, just in case. Sound funny here. A few things we need to jump into here before we get into the chat. And the first is Sammy Smith, of course, going to be driving the number 8 for Junior Motorsports. RCR making some moves over there in Welcome, North Carolina. I'm going to talk a little bit of Dodge here. Dodge having a shakeup at the CEO level, or at least Stellantis is having a shakeup at the CEO level, which has opened a door for the former CEO of Dodge to make a return in a way. And we'll talk about that in just a minute as well. And also, Steve Phelps giving an interview last week talking about, stop me if you've heard this before, could possibly have a new manufacturer coming soon here. So we will delve into that as well. But first things first, let's get into the latest from the 2311 Front Row Motorsports versus NASCAR and to the injunction request or whatever. And so basically NASCAR obviously said, no, we don't think you have any like new information. You brought this on yourself. So it's going to go to another hearing about the injunction. So literally just another circle here about the injunction thing. So we've treaded over that before. So really nothing more to say other than that. We'll see what the courts have to say about the injunction deal going forward. But Sammy Smith going to drive the number 8 for Junior Motorsports. It was announced yesterday, and then today they released the actual first paint scheme that we've been able to see from it, the Pilot Flying J paint scheme, which is red, white, and black, Chicago Bulls colors, Budweiser colors, whatever you want to call them. Not reminiscent of any Budweiser car that Junior drove with the number 8 font. And almost immediately, as soon as this news was released, people were split down the middle. Kind of some people saying that Sammy Smith doesn't deserve to drive that number 8 car. Some people saying, hey, it's just a number. It kind of always jumps into that from time to time. There are certain numbers in the sport that this always hovers around. The number 3, obviously. One of them, some people get super upset. 43 for some people is a tricky number. They want certain people to drive that. Although that one, I haven't seen as much controversy over the 43, at least since the 90s, so much as the 3 and the 8. The 28's a big one. A lot of people, even though people have driven it after Davey Allison, it's still remembered as like Davey Allison's number. And it seems that they don't want anyone else to drive it. I think just to name a couple, Ricky Rudd and Ernie Irvin both drove the 28 as well with a slightly different font than Davey Allison drove it. But yeah, so 28's another one that's sticky. The 21, but there's some other ones that are historic numbers that people seem to not really get as up in arms about, like the number 21 Wood Brothers. That's a huge one, an all-timer right there, but people don't seem to get up in arms as much about it. But there's two sides to the argument. So the first side of the argument is you've seen that number for a long time. You associate it with a certain driver, and you only want to see either that driver drive it or somebody with that driver's last name or somebody that is basically a potential future Hall of Famer. Like in this case, a lot of people wanted Martin Truex Jr. to drive that 8 car. So that's one side of the argument, that you think that number is hollow and you can't retire numbers, but maybe retire that font. So that's that side of it. The other side of it is, and this is the side personally that I take. This is the poll question, by the way. Do you care that Sammy Smith is running the Dale Jr. number 8 font? Option number 1, he hasn't earned it. Option number 2, it's just a number. Option C, peak offseason equals numbers trauma. And option number 4, I thought Dale Jr. drove the number 88. So those are the options in the poll question. But here's where I fall on the numbers issue. And I'll take it back, and that's the reason I mentioned Davey Allison at the top here. There is going to be a whole generation of people who young kids watching NASCAR who are never going to remember Davey Allison, because that 28, that font, they will never see that on the racetrack. And in a way, that's kind of a travesty, because Davey Allison was a huge part of NASCAR, a huge reason that the sport grew in the 80s and 90s. Whereas, although people are upset that maybe not the guy they want driving the number three car. I'm just going to use the number three car here as an example. Mm, Maybe not be their some people might not be their first pick to see Austin Dillon drive that three. I think it's a good thing that he is driving that three for this reason. You see that number three out there, and if a little kid sees that and says, "Hey, I like that car, I like that number," you can tell them the backstory of that number, and that way the history is passed on. Like, hey, Austin Dillon's driving it now. I'm glad you like him. I'm glad he's your favorite driver now. But there was a guy that drove it before Austin Dillon, and then you get to tell them the story of Dale Earnhardt. So it's a way of passing down the history and the legacy of the font of a number and things like that. So I go the opposite direction with it. I like when the number is run in that font, even though it might not be your favorite driver for whatever reason driving it. I think it's a good thing overall because you extend that history and you keep those that in this case those that aren't with us. You keep them relevant in the sport, even though they're not here anymore. So that's the side I've always taken on it. But to each their own. So it is the poll question. Jump in there, vote on the poll question if you would like to. If not, don't worry about it. Speaking of RCR, RCR has announced a few team moves here. First off, Andy Street is going to be the crew chief of a third part-time car that they're going to run in the Cup Series, and I thought that was interesting. Chad Haney is going to be the 21 crew chief with Austin Hill, and Danny Stockman is going to be Jesse Love's crew chief. So good crew chiefs there for the Xfinity Series, RCR Xfinity Series, one of the best ones out there. But I like this third car, this third option here that we're going to have in the Cup Series, even though it's going to be part time. Because I think you can see Austin Hill run several races in it, and I think you have an opportunity to put some other drivers in there that you might want to test out. So I think it's a good thing. I like these Project 91 things like that. Put somebody in there. They might not otherwise have a ride or something like that, or just an all-star type deal. So I do like the Project 91 style cars, whatever you want to call them, all-star cars or whatever. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing of note, it doesn't matter what RCR does. People are going to think that the RCR is not doing enough. Here's the deal. RCR did have a down year compared to what they have done previously last season. They did win a race with Austin Dillon, but it was controversial, so they didn't get a playoff bid because of it, the way it ended. But the car was certainly fast enough to win the race, and it did win the race, although people didn't necessarily love the way it was won. But before this season, which was statistically not a great season for RCR relative, the season before that, they did win 3 races with Kyle Busch. The season before that, Tyler Reddick in the same number 8 car won 3 races. So last year was a down year for RCR, but I do feel like they get dogpiled on quite a bit for having one bad year. They had one bad year last year, no doubt about that. But they did have 2 really good years previous to that. So I feel like no matter what they do, they get overly scrutinized for some reason. It's just one of those things. One of the weird anomalies of social media. They sort of get over criticized for every single move they make. At least in my opinion. Your opinion might differ. So we'll see here. The other big news here, got some news from Dodge, and this is going to be sort of a long road to get here, but stick with me. The Stellantis CEO, which Stellantis is the company that owns Dodge, and I saw this here from Jack Fitzgerald at Car and Driver. It was actually announced on December 1st by Stellantis itself, but I saw the article from Jack Fitzgerald. Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares has abruptly resigned. So a lot to unpack there. I don't really want to get into the nuts and bolts of how Stellantis is run and all that good stuff, but this guy basically took a gamble on electric. This is the guy that I saw an article about this. I can't remember where I saw it though. This is the guy that a lot of people at Dodge blame for killing the Hemi. So in my opinion, him stepping down is a great thing because it breathes hope into Dodge, which is the brand of Stellantis that I'm going to focus on, Dodge and Ram. it breathes some life into them, and it gives them an opportunity because obviously Dodge was talking about getting back into NASCAR a few years ago, but they decided they got cold feet and pulled out because there wasn't enough electrification in NASCAR. Basically, NASCAR didn't get that hybrid engine in the car quick enough for Dodge's taste, so Dodge kind of got cold feet and pulled out because they didn't want to be a part of something that wasn't, or at least Carlos Tavares didn't want to be a part of something that wasn't electrified or whatever. So with that being said, with him stepping away and backing up, a guy named Tim Kuniskus, who was the former CEO of Dodge, you might remember him as the guy that had the Brotherhood of Muscle. That was the ad campaign that he was most famously associated with when he was CEO. He has now stepped into the CEO role for the Ram brand over there. So I think this could be a good sign for Dodge, not only for the health of their company, but also it's going to give them probably an opportunity to get back into NASCAR if they see it viable, and maybe they bring back the Hemi. A lot of things could happen here rather rapidly as they try to right the ship over there at Stellantis / Dodge / Ram. So I thought that was interesting. But what it also tells us is that at the very most, unless something's going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, like this was a total coup d'etat from Tim Kuniskus, Dodge is probably way further away because I know a lot of people want Dodge back in NASCAR. Dodge is probably way further away from joining up with NASCAR, as some of those reports were mentioning a few years ago, than they have ever been. So at the early 2 years, if they wanted to get into NASCAR, but maybe that's what Steve Phelps was hinting at when he said a few weeks ago, possibly two manufacturers get back into the sport. Maybe Dodge was the other one. But I think that's going to be further out, of course, than the one that is currently rumored, which would be Honda. Honda looks like, for all the money in China, they're the one flirting the hardest with coming to NASCAR right now. And basically, this Dodge information more or less confirms that, is what I'm sort of getting at here. And if you follow sort of the Honda news, of course, big rumors that Honda might leave IndyCar, so that would free up some money, maybe if that happened, to come to NASCAR. Or maybe they don't leave IndyCar and they've still just got enough money. They want to dip their toe into the NASCAR deal. So that would be very, very interesting. And the other interesting thing happening with Honda right now is that Nissan is in deep, deep trouble. And they're wanting Honda to buy into Nissan, to stake Nissan so that Nissan can stay alive. If that were to happen, a lot of hypotheticals there, but if that were to happen, one of the benefits that would be for Honda is Honda gets a full-size truck chassis, and they also get the Frontier truck chassis where they could just slap the Honda badge on it, slap a Honda engine in it, and run it as a Honda, which would be good for the truck series, obviously. Now, they do have the Honda Ridgeline. They could run the Honda Ridgeline in the truck series if Honda wanted to come into the Cup Series. So there's no doubt about it. They do have a truck option, but this would give them an actual frame on body on frame. I said it backwards. Body on frame chassis to get into the truck series. Not that necessarily matters these days, but some people are sticklers. Some people still remember the old days and how it used to be, and are real sticklers about that. So if that happens, that would give Honda sort of the platform to be in the truck series. So I found that super interesting as well. All right. I think I mentioned everything that I said I was going to talk about at the intro. Let's jump into the chat and see what you guys want to talk about right now. 49% leading the way on the poll question. It's just a number. 24%. He hasn't earned it. 27%. Peak off season equals numbers drama, and 0% for I thought Junior drove the 88. So there you go. That is where it stands right now. All right, let's see what you guys want to talk about. Lloyd Barnes, howdy BB and everyone else. What's up, Lloyd? Good to see you on here, my friend. What's up, In Between the Lanes? Toyota leaving NHRA after 2025. Says In Between the Lanes. Yeah, that's interesting, but I don't necessarily think that that's necessarily a bad sign for NASCAR, but we'll see. We'll see. It could totally be a bad sign for NASCAR, but it is an interesting move. I did see that the other day as well. Magic Bucks on TNT. All right. Hopefully the Magic can get them here today. Bill to UNC, says Dummer Kaufman. BB to RCR, says In Between the Lanes. What's up, one wise guy? Richard enjoys watching the number 43 on track. Indeed. No doubt about it. Now, he was at the very beginning of the 43 deal. He did make Bobby Hillin. Was it Bobby Hillin? Bobby Hillin was the first guy. Then it was Bobby Hamilton. He made Bobby Hillin drive the 44 for a little while. Then he relented on it because he didn't want to lose the 43 number. So he let Bobby Hamilton drive the 43. And after that, he just kind of, it didn't bother him seemingly as much. That's the only real controversy over the 43 that I can really remember as who was driving it and who wasn't driving it. From what I understand, Doug Yates still owns the rights to the 28 and keeps renewing it every year, so it can't be run. Says Dirty Def. Yeah, he probably does own the rights to the font. There's no doubt about that. But as far as the rights to the number, any NASCAR team could run the 28. They just couldn't run it in the 28 font. But I think out of respect to Doug Yates and that family, the Allison family and all that, I think teams have chose not to run the 28 at all because it's not necessarily a number that's off limits. It's a font that he owns the rights to. But yeah, good point. Good point. 69 is the best car number. Says, yeah, I'm not even going to try to say that. We're just going to go with Bill. Gerbil Bill. Let's see. Lloyd Barnes. Have y'all noticed on JRM's site that there is 3 drivers shown without car numbers? Honeycutt, Voppel, LaPrade. Any ideas on this? I just assume that the numbers will come when they come. I thought they showed Voppel's number, but when they did the Bass Pro thing, but I could be wrong about that. It means things. It means different things to different generations, says one wise guy talking about the numbers. For sure. I agree with that. Lloyd Barnes with a thumbs up there to wise guy. Dale Jr. said they wanted the 28 when he went to Hendrick, but when they asked Yates, he suggested the 88. Hey, so there you go. I do remember that on the Dale Jr. download because Jr. wasn't even thinking the 28 was a big deal. Then he kind of found out that there was something there to it. BB, are we running that part-time RCR car? We'll find out. We got to get through the test season first, my friend. Rumors are Chandler Smith ride this year is part-time for the RCR and that third Cup Series car, says Dirty Def. Yeah, for sure. That could be what Chandler Smith was sort of hinting at back in the day or a couple days ago. So it'll be interesting to see all the announcements. I kind of want to see all the drivers that they're going to put in that car and how many races that car is actually going to run. Lloyd Barnes saying he's heard that rumor also. Speaking of RCR, did anything else come out of the Andy Petrie or maybe why he left? So far, mum is the word. There's all kinds of speculation and theories out there, but I don't think anybody said officially anything about it just yet. Ram Trucks proud to sponsor the Pat McAfee show. Indeed, they used to sponsor the Dan Patrick show too. I think he's Mercedes-Benz now, if I'm not mistaken. Guts, glory, Ram. Best Sam Elliott I could do there. Sorry. New segment on the Pat McAfee show is called Ram Trucked. Brickyard Brickhead saying, BB, you are so correct with keeping the connection to NASCAR history on the track and not just in museum. All numbers have history. Let's celebrate them. Yeah, that's just the way I've always looked at it. But I certainly understand, people not wanting to see certain drivers drive certain numbers too. But I think overall, I think it's better to have literally anybody drive it so that you can pass down the history. What's up, Oscar Ramirez? Good to see you on there, my friend. Howdy from Canuckistan, late, high on paint fumes, old and tired, but jogging, lots to beat, high blood pressure, our snow melted, let it snow, says Robin Marks. What's up, Robin Marks? What's up, Canada? Always good to see you on here, my friend. Dirty Def, I wonder if the alleged RCR getting leaked info from JGR played a part in Petrie leaving. All that supposedly happened about the same time and weird. You haven't heard anything from Andy since he left. Yeah, that seems to be the biggest rumor that you hear about it, but nobody's really come out and said anything official about it. So it will just have to remain sort of one of those NASCAR rumors for now. Most other single motorsports outside of the USA have drivers use a career number, essentially regardless of where they drive. The number follows. F1, MotoGP, V8 supercars are examples, says Cody Ledger. Yeah, that's true. I think in F1, when you win the championship, you can run, if I remember correctly, if you win the championship, you can run number one. But after that, you just sort of run your regular number again. And then running the number one is optional as well. So I think I might be misremembering that, though. I'm not an F1 expert by any stretch. I've heard that it's Honda and Nissan combined to get involved in NASCAR, says Lloyd Barnes. That would make sense if it plays out that Honda buys a significant portion of Nissan to stake them so that they can continue, and obviously Honda would have the controlling interest in Nissan if they bought that stake. So that's going to be an interesting story to see play out. Whether or not they come to NASCAR or not, that's going to be an interesting story to play out. My backstory would be, that number three used to not only have a driver that could win a race more than one every 4 years. It used to be driven by a seven-time champion, says Jamie Schweitzer. Yeah, I mean, certainly, like you can present it any way you would like to present it. No doubt about that. But that's the fun. That's the fun of sports, like passing down the traditions and the history. Like there's like look at baseball. There's a reason Babe Ruth is still remembered. You remember they passed down the legendary stories of him calling the home run shot and all that good stuff. That's part of the deal. And although you can retire numbers in baseball, you do still see them in the outfield. Like, hey, why is that number three in the outfield? So it is still visible. It's still out there in the outfield ring of honor or whatever you want to call it, depending on the sport. Did you see the 2025 Napa scheme? I did see the 2025 Napa scheme. It kind of looks pretty similar to the one they ran this year, just like an all blue with some white outlines, and it looks good. I mean, Napa never really misses. I can't remember one where they've just super whiffed on it or blown it. T-Van, what's up, my man? What's up, BB and crew? I personally don't care who drives the car. It's just good to see the font back. It's iconic. I want Truex to drive it one more time, though. Yeah, so it's interesting. Some people went from, we just want to see that 8 back on the track. Then they found out that Sammy Smith was driving that 8, and then they well, he can't drive it. So like it's like this weird, like, do you want the number back on track or do you not want the number back on track? It's a weird, just a weird dynamic for some people. Pat McAfee admits do in NASCAR outside of Cup next year. Uh, I imagine he'll run some. I think he'll run races that aren't necessarily Cup. Like I think he'll run some other races that aren't NASCAR. I'll say that. I don't know if he runs. I'm pretty sure he'll run some Xfinity too, just to get some extra repetitions at certain tracks. I think he'll do actually, and I will say this: I do think he'll do better in the Cup Series than he did in the Xfinity Series because I think he's just much more used to the way this car drives because it's more similar to an Australian V8 supercar than the Xfinity car. So I actually think the learning curve for this car is going to be lesser than it was for the Xfinity Series, if that makes any sense. Today is Aaron Rodgers, but I think he'll still have a hard time because coming into the Cup Series, it's just a different animal. Other than the road courses and street courses. Today is Aaron Rodgers Tuesday. BB says in between the lanes. I don't know how the Jets lost that game. Like that was insane. And I was just watching on DraftKings, but like I don't know. I can't figure out the Jets, man. They find ways to lose. Can I add you on TikTok? Says Jimmy is Timmy. I don't have a TikTok, but I'm sure you can. Correct, BB, about F1. Super Max Verstappen chose to run the number one and used to be number 33, says in between lanes. Hey, so there you go. It's in F1, it's an honor to run the number one. It's not just like another number on the track. Are you slacking or are you ready for Christmas? Says one wise guy. I've been working, actually. I have not been slacking. I'm not quite ready for Christmas yet, though. The only numbers that are seriously important are the 3 and the 43, says Bruce Reed. It just depends on who you ask. Like the 24 is huge to a lot of people. The 48 is going to be huge to a lot of people. The 2 going to be huge to a lot of people. The 11 going to be huge to a lot of people. But it'll be the 11 will be huge to Cale Yarborough fans and Denny Hamlin fans, so on and so forth. Every number going to be huge. The 18 is always probably going to be remembered as the Kyle Busch number as time goes by. Obviously, he's driving the 8 now, but I think certain numbers with certain guys, it'll always be remembered a certain way. Lando Norris won on Sunday, and that was the end of Sir Lewis Hamilton's final race for Mercedes. Yep, end of an era there for Lulu and Mercedes. Rick Wilson drove the 44 in 93 after Richard retired. Rick Wilson, that's who it was. It was like Rick Wilson and then like Bobby Hillin and then Bobby Hamilton, if I'm not mistaken. Some kind of combination of that. And I think Jimmy Hensley got some starts in there at some point as well. Speaking of baseball, Soto got that much closer to $1 billion deal. It's coming, says one wise guy. We might see $1 billion deal, possibly in our lifetime. What's his Max Fried? Max Fried signed with the Yankees today, so Yankees looking good. That line of the Napa scheme is white compared to the yellow from 2024. That's the only main difference. There you go, little change up in the color, but basically the same scheme. My sister's track record in Nissan Altima has to have her on the short list for for a ride, says Temper Ace. I'm glad numbers are not retired. If they were, the number 22 of Fireball Roberts would have likely been the first retired. Hashtag go Joey, says Jamie Switzer. Yeah. Like, there's no way to retire. It would be maddening to retire numbers in racing. I don't know. I don't know how that would play out. Please bring Nissan. The memes will pay the bills, says Timber Ace. I don't give a rat's booty about a fourth manufacturer. We've been supposed to have a fourth manufacturer since the fourth manufacturer left, says Lovey Barkley. Good point. And I think I mentioned that. Like, I think I said, stop me if you've heard this before, but if not, I did mean to say that. It feels like every year, Steve Phelps comes out and says that. So, like I said, I'm with you. I'll believe it when I see it. That's why I said speculative. But I do think Honda's probably the one that's flirting the most with them right now. I think at various points, manufacturers do get close, but nobody has ever taken that big leap to just go over and jump into the sport. But I do think some have been close at various times. I agree. SVG in the Xfinity car drove like a forklift compared to a cup car, says Dirty Def. Yeah, I think he's going to have a little bit less of a learning curve for this. What's unique to NASCAR versus any other sport besides speed is collaboration of the entire team, from the jackman to the crew chief or engineer that stays up all night redesigning a tiny part. Yeah, it is. The pit stops and the teamwork is a big deal for sure in the Cup Series, relative or any of the touring series, really, relative to some other motorsports, we'll say. What's up, Lovey Barkley? Hola, Lovey, says one wise guy. Max Fried signed with the Yankees, says in between the lanes. Indeed. Yankees needed some pitching, so hopefully that puts them over the top for next year. Lovey saying, what's up to one wise guy? See the time cover with the Caitlin Clark. That is one bad woman, says Mark Barnum. So Caitlin Clark apparently on the cover of Time magazine. I didn't know that. So there you go. You learn something every day. When's our next test session, BB? Says in between lanes. I don't know. I don't know. I need to get a day off from the late model stuff first. The Panthers are another team that can find a way to lose, says Delmer Kaufman. Oh yeah, agreed, agreed. There were some crazy NFL games where teams found ways to lose this weekend, if I remember correctly. Thoughts on Phelps saying that the Xfinity will start implementing next gen elements in the series in the future? Yeah, that sucks. I don't know. The Xfinity series has been so good recently. I wish they'd leave it alone, but I don't know. I don't get it, man. But I guess eventually they have to sort of start making them closer to the Cup cars so that it's not as big a transition for those drivers when they come to the Cup Series. But I really hate to see the Xfinity Series cars get touched because they're running they're just so much fun to watch right now. You and Craig Dunn racing for the season. We got some more races coming up. So no, the off season has not technically started for us. I guess most of December will be off though. So I guess December we'll have the rest of December we'll probably have off. BB, will ever see a 3-digit numbered car in the Cup Series again? I think the 121 was probably the last one. I don't know. I remember it was kind of like a big controversy for like the 07 and the 01 back in the day. I remember people had I don't remember what I was younger then, so I didn't really pay attention to it. But I remember some people had some mixed feelings about like the 01 singular wireless car of Jason Leffler. If I remember correctly, I think it was 01. And the 07 Jack Daniels car, like they didn't want to put the O in front of a regular number when there was already a 7 out there. Like, so there's been some weird controversies over numbers in the past. Calling it now, Joey wins. Bowman Gray says one wise guy. Oh, he could. The Bills game was good, says one wise guy. Yeah, the Bills game was pretty crazy. Have you ever watched any of the Stapleton Garage tours? I just watched Bobby Labonte. I saw the preview for it. I haven't watched that one yet. And Chris Hussey gave a tour of the old Bill Davis garage from back in the day. Pretty cool. Yeah, Stapleton does a great job. So if you're not familiar with him, give him a try. I think he's got a great channel. Lovey Barkley, every 2025 car that has been released so far has either been exactly the same or similar to 2024 or so bland. It wasn't even worth releasing. I kind of like that in a way though, Lovey, because you start to build some brand identity now. Like part of the reason that Richard Petty and STP is like every he would run the same car for about 3 or 4 years, and then they would change the scheme, but it was always the STP scheme. So I do kind of like that. Maybe keep them the same for like 3 years and then switch to another one, so you do kind of get used to it. And then there's the Joe Logano route where they change the car from time to time, but the Pennzoil scheme is always relatively the same. You had the scallops there for a while, and now you've got like the red border on the side of it. Which driver are you most looking forward to next season? Rookie or veteran, says one wise guy. I kind of want to see what Ryan Preece does in good equipment. I think this is going to be the best equipment that Ty Dillon has ever had. So I'm interested to see what he does. I'm interested to see what Josh Berry does in essentially Penske equipment. I think we're going to find out something there as well. So those would just off the top of my head in the Cup Series, those are the guys that I'm looking at. Number 8 cat hat. Who was that? Reddick. Yeah, this was back when Reddick. This was the Darlington throwback hat when Reddick threw back to Jeff Burton. That's where this hat comes from. All right. Looks like we've reached the end of the chat here. Poll question. Final poll question. 55% is just a number. 26% hasn't earned it. 19% peak off season equals numbers drama. I can't argue with that at all. Saying 0%. 0% for I thought Junior drove the number 88. Two finalists for 2024 Cup Series. LaJoy, Jimmy Johnson, Baby Gibbs, and Allmendinger, says Jamie Schweitzer. I find it very funny. They want to use Cup parts in Xfinity, and the Cup car isn't even safe yet. All right, it's backwards world we're living in, so that's just part of it. So back in the day, there were several brands on track: Ford, Mercury, Dodge, Plymouth, Buick, Oldsmobile, and Chevy, but still only 3 manufacturers. Indeed, you can go. I mean, you go back farther than that. You go back to the 40s and 50s. There were all kinds of manufacturers out there, and they had like at some points hundreds. I think they had like 100 race cars maybe start a race one time. I might be off about that, but it was close. It was close. They had a good number. I know close to 70 at least at one point. But yeah, back in the day, they had all kinds of stuff going on. I wish we had like a full race from back in the day. I would love to watch like a full one, but it is what it is. Hopes and dreams. All right, that's it for this one. I'll check you guys on the next one. Thanks for hanging out, and until then, peace.